One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's Bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Success isn't always about greatness. It's about consistency. Consistent hard work leads to success. Greatness will come. Dwayne Johnson. Okay, so today's episode I'm really excited about because we're going to talk about consistency. And you bet your bottom dollar I got some more quotes and really fun things to share with you about people who have had crazy amounts of success in different areas of the world, different areas of their life. And I'm excited to talk about it because I believe consistency is the foundation of how you should build your podcast, how you should build your business, and how you should show up for yourself in your life. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? So there are a few specific reasons why I wanted to create a podcast episode about consistency today. But the number one reason is I'm actually on vacation when this episode airs, right? It's one of those weird things. We've talked about this before where it's like, I'm trying to future pace like what's actually happening when this episode airs versus what's going on today when I'm obviously working and creating content and doing all the things in the office. But when this episode airs, I'm going to be on vacation. It is going to be my kids' spring break. And I told myself this year, I am taking time off. Last year, we actually went to a cabin in Oklahoma and we were literally out in the middle of nowhere. And I had barely any service. Like there was no internet, there was no Wi-Fi that was like reliable. It was basically dial-up internet and it was terrible. Like even my phone, because usually I could rely on my phone to like kind of pull through like, okay, well, I can't do a lot of things on my computer, but I can do a lot on my phone. So I'll do it there. And I'll do it. It was a disaster, but in the best possible way because I had to check out. I didn't really have the option. So I knew that this year, no matter what we were going to do for spring break, I wanted to take time off. I'm not going to guarantee I'm not going to touch anything while I'm gone, but I knew that I wanted to take time off from the podcast. And the way to do that is I have to batch content, right? I have to record maybe a few episodes at one time and upload them, maybe do a little planning. And if you are brand new, and this episode is absolutely not about batching today, but I will link to some resources that we have about batching your content in order to be consistent, because that is what we're talking about today. We are talking about consistency, how to make it happen, how to make that work. So all the things that we talk about today, you can find in the show notes, crystalprofit.com/episode 237. But I just really wanted to talk to you about why consistency means so much to me. So recently I had a great conversation with someone from our podcast community, and they just told me flat out the reason why they come back to me over and over again for podcast advice, business tips, and motivation whenever they're really ready to just give up on their podcast and quit is because I'm so consistent. And I'm not telling you this to kind of toot my own horn, but I will say that this is something that was intentional for me. I want to be known as someone who is consistent. I don't want to be flaky. I don't want to be someone that they're just like, oh, we just can't really depend on her. So she's not going to be the person that we look to every single time. Like we have a podcast question or we want to know about marketing our podcast or a great launch strategy. I want to be the first person that pops in your head when you think about podcasts. You're like, I wonder what Crystal would say about that. I wonder if she already created a podcast episode about that. I wonder if she has a YouTube video dedicated to this exact thing that I'm trying to walk through right now. Maybe she has an awesome tutorial. Those are the things that I want my audience to think about me. And the only way that that can actually happen is if I'm consistent with my content, consistent with my messaging, consistent with how often I'm showing up on a regular basis. So I told y'all I'm going to share some quotes that I found. And by the way, I found these on Brainy Quote because I know some people will see a quote like shared somewhere and they're like, that's not actually who said that. Like, check your resources. So I'm not saying that I know all of these are true to exactly who said them first. These are the quotes that I found on Brainy Quotes. Okay. So don't come after me. Don't come after me saying you need to do your research. I found these on Brainy Quotes and it's really more about like what the message is. And if you want to correct me, if you want to fact check me, that's fine. I'm all for it. And I will go down the rabbit hole and do more research. But I really was looking for really inspirational quotes that had to do with consistency and how we can all show up better for our podcast. So trust is built with consistency. And this was Lincoln Chaffee who said this. And I love that trust is built with consistency because it's so true. It's so true. And I'm going to give you some dumb analogies here, but it's what I do, right? It's the metaphors, the analogies that don't make any sense. That's what you love. I know that's what it is. Starbucks. Okay. This is a really dumb one to go with, but it's what we're going to talk about. Because most of you probably like Starbucks. Even if you only have it once a month, if you have it every single day, or you have it once a year, you know that when you go to any Starbucks, wherever it is, hopefully it's going to be the same whether you get it in Houston, Texas, or Colorado, or California, or Vermont, or wherever you are visiting a Starbucks. The idea is it's going to be consistent with what you're used to ordering. And I used to use the analogy of McDonald's, right? But I'll just be really honest. I have been to many McDonald's that are not consistent. They're supposed to be like on par, like this whole consistency. And I'm like, that McDonald's gross. Don't ever go there again. I travel when I get on the road with the kids and we're like, oh, McDonald's. And I'm like, oh, can we just wait and see if there's a Chick-fil-A? Because I'm more down with the Chick-fil-A crowd because I love their wraps. It's really, and the waffle fries, the wraps, the waffle fries, and an Arnold Palmer. Like that's the way to my heart when we are traveling. That's what I like to have. I know we're getting off on a tangent, but going back to trust is built with consistency. It's having the same thing no matter what store you go to. It's the same idea you want to have with your listeners. When they come to your podcast, they're going to know, oh man, Crystal's going to say something stupid that's going to make us all laugh. That's kind of, maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's kind of true, right? Like what is Crystal going to say today that's so ridiculous that I'm going to question why I listen to this person at all? Like, why do I keep coming back here? Like, I mean, and that's kind of my job is I want you to laugh. I want you to have fun with podcasting. And that is my entire principle behind me saying the ridiculous things that I do. It's because I want you to think podcasting is fun. And I want you to be excited to come back here every single week to listen to the shenanigans that we have. But in order to do that, I have to first be consistent with how often I'm putting out this content. Because if I published 1 week and then took 2 or 3 weeks off and then I didn't come back for a while, you'd be like, oh yeah, there was that one podcast I kind of used to listen to, but then she stopped posting stuff. And then, I think maybe they put out a new episode, but I've already moved on. I've already replaced those shows with something else because those other people show up. Okay. So it's really important that you build that trust with your audience. That way they trust you. They know that you're going to be there and they come back every single time you put out a new episode. So here's another quote for you. It's not all about talent. It's about dependability, consistency, and being able to improve. If you work hard and you're coachable and you understand what you need to do, you can improve. And this was by Bill Belichick. Now, this is really funny. We're going to have lots of side tangents today, so I apologize in advance. Sorry, not sorry. I have never been a Patriots fan. I've always been a Cowboys girl. And then we moved to Houston, and then I just honestly quit watching football in the last few years. I just don't really watch it a lot. I don't know what happened, where it fell off, but I don't watch a ton of football anymore. But my sister-in-law is from Maine, and so she always grew up like New England Patriots, like, Patriots. And I was just like, ugh, not the Patriots. Like, it's all about the Cowboys. It's all about Cowboys. And when I saw this quote, I was like, okay, no matter what I have against Bill Belichick, he's got a point. He has a fantastic point. So I'm going to read this to you again, because I think as a podcaster, no matter where you are in your journey, you need to hear this today. Okay. It's not all about talent. It's about dependability, consistency, and being able to improve. If you work hard and you're coachable and you understand what you need to do, you can improve. And I believe this wholeheartedly when it comes to a podcaster, no matter where you are in your journey, whether you're trying to sound better, whether you're trying to improve your stats, whether you're trying to get sponsorships and you're trying to build your confidence to approach someone to be a partner with you, like whatever it is. Sorry, my dog is making crazy noises in the background. That's what that noise is. But I think it's so important to understand that you can improve. It's not all about talent. It's about dependability, consistency, and being able to improve. So the next quote I have to share with you, and like you're going to hear me clicking in the background. It's because I'm like trying to make sure I don't say all the quotes like 4 times. The next one is a really, really good one. I told y'all I have like different quotes I wanted to share from different people, different aspects.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Getting an audience is hard. Ooh, this is going to really speak to some of y'all, so y'all pay attention, okay? Getting an audience is hard. Sustaining an audience is hard. It demands a consistency of thought, of purpose, and of action over a long period of time. And this was Bruce Springsteen. And I thought, oh my gosh, he didn't even know it, but he was really talking about podcasters. Like, he didn't even know it. This could be the quote of all podcasters everywhere. So I'm going to say it again. Getting an audience is hard. Sustaining an audience is hard. It demands a consistency of thought, of purpose, and of action over a long period of time. Does that not sound like the podcast process? Holy moly. When I read this, I was like, this is 100% what it's like to have a podcast. It's hard, y'all. I'm not sitting here saying that podcasting is easy every step of the way, especially for those of you that have a super focused audience or you're trying to reach a very specific target market and you're trying to figure out how to do that. Getting an audience is hard. I didn't fall into having hundreds of people listening to my podcast every single week. No, I probably had 5 people listening to my podcast when it first launched. And it was mostly the people that I interviewed to have on the show. That's really legit how this podcast started. I would have people come on the show, they would listen to their episode, and then they would share it with their family and friends. So that's probably my audience that week. I didn't have a consistent listener base. I would have people kind of up and down and all over the place because people that were on the show were the ones sharing it. Okay, like I was sharing it, but no one really cared about what I was doing until they did. So I'm going to say this quote one more time because I think it is so true to the journey. Getting an audience is hard. Sustaining an audience is hard. It demands a consistency of thought, of purpose, and of action over a long period of time. Okay? That's so good. It's so good. So I want you to know you're not the only one that thinks this is hard. I've never said podcasting was the easiest thing to do. I've just always said it's worth it. It's 100% worth it. It is so fulfilling to me to show up here every single week and chat with you and be in your earbuds and talking to you and coaching you and just sharing my passion with people in a way that can help them along their own journey of being consistent, showing up for their podcast every single week. Okay, so here's another one, and I love this author, okay? Love her so much. One isn't necessarily born with courage, but one is born with potential. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest. And that was Maya Angelou. Okay, I'm going to read this one again. One isn't necessarily born with courage. She's talking to all of y'all that are scared to start your podcast. You are scared to put your voice out there because you're like, I'm going to sound dumb. I'm going to sound stupid. People aren't going to like what I have to say. No. She's telling you one isn't necessarily born with courage, but one is born with potential. You have everything inside of you that you need to create this podcast. Okay, I could coach you and tell you all day long, this is how you need to do it. This is the strategy you need to have. And this is the equipment. And this is where you need to do it. And like all the things. But at the end of the day, you have to be the one to use your potential. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. I'm going to say that again. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. So I know many of you have very impactful messages that you want to put out there, but if you're not practicing all of these virtues with consistency, the courage is not even a thing. Okay? Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest if we aren't first courageous. Okay? And I added that little part there, like without first being courageous. Y'all, she knew something. She knew something about courage and putting yourself out there and being consistent. But first, you have to be courageous. So I'm going to read it one more time. One isn't necessarily born with courage, but one is born with potential. Without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue with consistency. We can't be kind, true, merciful, generous, or honest. Maya Angelou, y'all, she knew so much, so much about being courageous. Okay, I have one last quote to share with you, and then I'm going to share some personal thoughts. So I like this one too. And I could have kept going all day. I kept finding so many good ones, but I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be here for hours if I go through all the amazing consistency quotes. I pray to be like the ocean with soft currents, maybe waves at times. More and more, I want the consistency rather than the highs and lows. And this was Drew Barrymore. And I like this because of the visual. And the reason why I say that is because you will have highs and lows in your podcasting journey, whether it's a high of launching your podcast, whether it's the low of coming out of a holiday season and you're like, what happened? I got like close to 0 downloads because everybody was busy over the holidays and they didn't have time to listen to podcasts. So what is actually happening right now? I pray to be like the ocean with soft currents, maybe waves at times. More and more, I want the consistency rather than the highs and the lows. What I really appreciated about this is her just saying, I just don't want to be all over the place. This is what I'm reading. Like, this is my interpretation, right? You can interpret it however you want, but what I interpret out of this is I don't want to have weeks where I am just like, go, 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 pedal to the metal. I have to be on point, never sleeping, hardly have a time to eat, sleep, breathe, like do all the things, hang out with my kids, hang out with my husband, I just got to be go, go, go. And then I'll have time to rest. While I do think that we have seasons of life that are like that, if that's happening more often than you're resting, I think that there is an opportunity to you kind of like reevaluate what's going on. Because this has happened. This has happened to me before where I was just like, go, go, go. Got to get it done. I have all the ideas. I want to implement them now. I don't want to wait. I just need to go, 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 go. But again, I'm going to say it like this is me talking to you and speaking these words as if we're just having a conversation. I pray to be like the ocean with soft currents, maybe waves at times, right? Maybe having the highs and the lows just a little bit, the waving up and down. But more and more, I want the consistency rather than the highs and the lows. And that's really what I've been paying attention to with my own podcast journey. I just want to see the steady growth. I don't want to see a huge peak and then all of a sudden a valley and then a big peak and then a valley. I want to see a steady incline. A steady incline because that means I'm being consistent. And that means that people, when they find me, they get excited about all the other shows that I've already created for them, all the other videos, all the other posts. They can go back and see them because I've been consistent. And I actually had a really cool aha moment the other day. I told y'all I spoke at Podcast Movement University, And it was a really cool opportunity to get in front of my target audience, right? Like it's podcasters or people that want to have podcasts or people that want to get better at podcasting. And I thought to myself, man, if I had just kind of fallen in to the position that I'm in right now to speak on this stage, and I did not have all of the years of podcasting material, right? All of the podcast episodes. We're on episode 237 of this podcast. What if I was only on episode 4? What if I was on episode 4? I feel like the audience would say, does she really know what she's talking about? Like she's only been doing this for a little bit of time. And a lot of that I consider the behind the scenes, right? It's like that slow grind that no one sees. It's like what you do in the dark when no one's paying attention or, no one's looking at what you're doing, but you just keep showing up. That's the consistency that I'm talking about. And that is why consistency is so, so important to me. And I wanted to share with you today, I actually have a podcast episode that I did, and it was funny. Hang on, I pulled it up. So it was in September 2019. This is only a few months after I had made the pivot from the Rookie Life, which is my original podcast, to the Profit Podcast. I switched in the month of May. So this would have been May, June, July, August, September. So we're about 5 months in. 5 months into the new podcast, and I put out an episode that's titled Consistency is Key. Be consistent with your podcast. And I share 5 things in this episode that I believe if you are having issues with consistency, you need that episode. Like, don't even do anything else after this. Like, go listen to that episode. It's episode 83 of the Profit Podcast. We're going to link to it in the show notes so you can have it. But consistency is everything. It's everything when it comes to podcasting, because you may say, no one's listening to my show. Like I'm showing up every week and it's just not going. It's just not going. But what happens when that opportunity comes? It comes knocking on your door, and all of a sudden people are like, oh, what do you like? So what do? You have a podcast? Oh, how many episodes have you been doing? And you could say, well, I've been doing it for about a year. I have 50 episodes. And they're like, wow, 50 episodes. That's incredible. Like, I'm going to go listen to it. I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to go see. But see, none of that could have happened if you weren't already committed and consistent with your show. It would just be you with 4 episodes that are all over the place that may or may not make sense, that aren't really connected with your audience because you don't really hear from them because you're not consistent with your show. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's really, really important. Consistency is a big deal. This is a principle of my business, of my life. It is something that I want people to say about me when I'm not around. I want people to say, she is so consistent. She shows up when she says she's going to show up. She does what she says she's going to do. And time again, we can rely on when Crystal says she's going to do something. This is a core value that I want to pass on to you, and hope that you will instill this in your podcast, in your business, and in all the things that you're doing in your life, because I believe that consistency really does pay off. It does. I do. And I'm going to read you the quote that I read earlier. So, success isn't always about greatness. It's about consistency. Consistent, hard work leads to success. Greatness will come. And that was a quote by Dwayne Johnson. And that's the thought that I want to leave you here with today, because I believe greatness will come. You just have to keep showing up, being consistent, doing the thing, putting out the podcast episodes. But that's all I have for you today. So make sure you go check out the show notes. We'll have links to everything we talked about, including the Consistency is Key episode. So go to crystalprofit.com/episode 237 to check out everything we talked about here today. And if this is your first time tuning in, I'm so happy that you are part of the Profit Podcast community. Welcome. This is a safe space, a loving space, and I will from time to time go off on some tangents about consistency and showing up and not being afraid to put your stuff out there, because that is my job. That is literally my job. I've dubbed myself a podcast coach, a podcast therapist, like whatever hat you need me to wear. I want to be in your ears every single week to coach you through whatever podcast journey you are going on. And if you haven't joined us already, make sure you join us. We have a free Facebook group. Come in there. Come hang out every single week. We have posts, we have conversations, and we have a place for you to share your latest podcast episode. Every Wednesday, we have an opportunity for you to come in. It's called Plug Your Podcast. Every Wednesday, you can come in there and drop your latest episode, and we would love to hear from you. Share about what you're doing on your podcast journey. So that'll be linked in the show notes. Again, it's crystalprofit.com/episode 237. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, "Send Crystal a text message." And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, "Send Crystal a text message." And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.